Mark, I'm going to get a notebook. I'll be right back.
Okay, Martha. We're about ready to start. Put the video on. Take a deep breath. Aloha, everybody. Good morning. Aloha kakayaka. Thank you for being here on this monthly meeting of the Hawaii Correctional Systems Oversight Commission. I hope everybody's faring well as we begin to open up as a state and continue to observe and watch and see how things continue to occur here in Hawaii as well as the world and all the issues that are going on. Let's put our minds and hearts together as we focus on the task at hand. I think we're good with the way the agenda has been presented. I know for many of you, it's been an exhausting legislative session, and we're almost through it as they battle out the budget. So let's begin this meeting this morning. When we do the public testimonies, a raise of your hand if I can see you, or your digital hand. And we'll begin the meeting with public testimony on any of the items on our agenda at this time. So, who wants to be first?
Carrie
I heard somebody volunteer somebody, but.
Good morning. I'll go first.
All right, Carrie Ann.
Okay, so aloha everyone. Carrie Ann Shirota from the ACLU of Hawaii. Thank you, Chair Patterson and commissioners. From the legislative update, I'll just share sort of what priority bills that we are following currently through the conferencing process. HB 1567, which is the criminal pretrial bail reform bill. The Senate conferees have not been assigned yet, appointed. The House side has been. The ACLU's position is that that is moving in the step towards the direction where we ultimately should go, cash bail elimination. It's not exactly there, but of the two drafts, we support the Senate draft version, which includes Class C nonviolent offenses. And when we take a look at the demographics in particular, we see that it's like 80-something+ % of the women who are incarcerated are there for Class C felonies or below. And when you also look at the data for the number of people who are inside pretrial status, a smaller percentage are individuals who are detained for misdemeanors, petty misdemeanors compared to the felonies. And so by passing the Senate draft version, it will actually effectuate more releases, which would decrease overcrowding in our jails across Hawaii. So that's our position on that particular bill. On HB 2309, which is the appropriation that started out for nonprofit organizations to provide diversion, rehabilitation, and reentry services. Since in the last draft, it was changed that they incorporated several other reentry bills and collapsed it all into this particular bill and for funding. So we support this measure. We actually support the latest draft. I'm sorry, I didn't write down all my detailed notes, but I can maybe send an email on this. And to essentially say though, our one concern about this is that these other projects that were put into this bill, we just want to ensure that the nonprofit organizations that have been doing this reentry work, that they get some of the funding that comes down from this, and that it's not just limited to some of these new pilot projects that are being proposed. Because when we look at governmental funding and performance-based budgeting, we want to support the community organizations that have been doing the work and often are operating on a shoestring budget and have to apply for grants and find funding, and it limits their capacity. So let's invest with what's been working in our community.
And can I ask you for that bill number again?
Yes, sorry, HB 2309.
Thank
and
you.
It's titled Appropriations. On the civil IDs bill, HB 2169, I believe I see Kat Brady's on here. She'll likely provide an update. So you may have heard, and I did send in a correspondence to all of you, that as the bill is currently drafted on the Senate and House side, we oppose it. Nonetheless, that Kat will be, I think, discussing possibly some rewording of the bill. Now, if that rewording strengthens the legal responsibility duty of the Department of Public Safety to obtain the ideas, then we are open to that change. But as it's currently drafted, either the Senate or the House form, we would oppose it if it proceeds as is, because we believe that the current statute from 2017 is more of a enforceable, and the current standard would water down that standard. And then lastly, the other one, there are other ones we're tracking, but I think relevant to this commission is the budget. Of course, the budget is always of interest to all of us. As you know, on the House side version, the House committee removed the 15 million requests from the Department of Public Safety to proceed with planning for the jail. And we support the House's version. On the Senate side, the Senate put back in 1.5 million appropriation for jail planning. But I also think it's a concern for us is that when you look further into the budget and you dive in under the CIPs, there is 20 million allocated, very broad language to say renovation, I think replacement, and I don't have it right in front of me, I can send it to you. But I did reach out to the Senate Vice Chair, Keith Agaran, and I asked, for this 20 million that's in the CIP, could this potentially be used for OCCC? And he says that arguably it could, but then there would always be questions about why it was used for that purpose and not for the purpose it was requested for initially. And so from our perspective, the ACLU, we want to ensure that the funding, that 1.5 million that's in there currently now for the jail planning, we're going to be asking and encouraging them to divert that, reappropriate that into the community-based programs that are doing the work of reentry rather than proceeding with the jail plans as is. So that's our legislative report in a nutshell at this point. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie Ann. Appreciate that.
Mark, I have a question for Carrie Ann.
Okay, Ted.
Carrie Ann, on the bill on the civil IDs, how did it evolve to where it's at? Because the last I looked at it, I thought they had taken out that I believe the Senate had taken out that language that required the inmate to request. So how did it get back in?
So my understanding is that you're correct. That is not in there, that putting the burden upon the individual to request it
Right.
in either the House. I mean, it was removed. So that's definitely a plus. It seems like they were listening to those oversight commission for others in the community that said the burden should be placed on the agency. Again, the concern for us is this language about shall assist or versus shall issue. We believe, again, that changing it from shall issue to shall assist is very sort of vague, ambiguous. What does that mean to assist? Is it, again, just putting out a flyer and saying, hey, people, if you need help with IDs, is that enough to meet this requirement of assistance? We believe that there's more of an affirmative duty to literally people tangibly are leaving with an ID once they exit our prisons. So again, we're just looking at it from that standard, but you are correct in pointing out that the latest draft does not have the burden on the individual.
Okay, because I agree with you. There should be an affirmative duty. It's in the best interest of not only the community and the inmate, but also of the department to ensure that the inmate leaves with an ID.
Yes, yes. And so we agree with that sentiment, and we understand that there are some other states in their Department of Corrections that are doing this and are moving towards that to ensure people get the ID literally, in hand prior to exiting the door. So that is best for reentry, and we don't want the bill to be watered down, but we can support the bill being strengthened. But we'll see what in the conference committee. There's so many unknown variables for us to know what's going to happen next.
Thanks for the
Can I say something?
Go ahead, Kat, you're next anyway.
Just on the ID bill, I've been on this for a long time. And the department did get an appropriation when the bill was first passed in 2017. They got $25,000. They bought a machine that they couldn't work or something, but it didn't happen. So since that time, I've been trying to push the department, saying that with releasing people without ID is a recipe for recidivism. So that's a real problem. And since Max and Tommy got in, they have really focused on this. And I got to say, I've been a pain in the butt because I constantly ask them about what's happening. So the deal is that the department now has a machine, but it is the machine, the same kind of machine that's at satellite city halls. So it just is, it's right now at Halava, and they input information. And then that information, just like at the driver's license thing, goes to a mainframe of DOT, and they produce the ID. And then Department of Public Safety will pick up the ID and put it in the person's file so that when they're released or they're going on to work furlough, they will have an ID. The real issue about this thing is the real ID thing that passed in the early 2000s. So that has made it really difficult. So what the department is doing, they're starting at Halava, and then they're working with the driver's license places in the counties, and they will then be going there. But right now, the initial start is at Halava, and Halava has, incarcerated people from all around the island. So it covers a lot of people. So that's where it is right now. I have been talking to Max and Tommy saying, but you can't release people without an ID. So is there some way we could get that language in the bill? Because the Senate Public Safety Committee was really clear that the onus on getting the ID should not be on the person who's incarcerated. It should be the kuleana of the department. And we agree with that. But I understand that the department is unable. They have told me multiple times they're unable to produce the IDs. And right now, DOT is experienced in IDs, and they've promulgated memorandums of understanding or agreement with the different counties. So they're working really hard on it. And I would hate to see this bill fail and then us having to start all over again. That's my real concern. Thank you.
Thank you, Kat. Anyone else? Mike, you have a question?
Yeah, for Carrie Ann. Carrie Ann, I know you understand, and I think I understand, B and C felonies as such shouldn't be excluded from doing away with cash bail, because what we call B and C felonies in Hawaii may be misdemeanors or what they call wobblers in other states. And an example is a rob two. Somebody takes a Snickers bar from a store, and if they resist the shoplifter, it turns into a rob two, which is a 10-year prison term. That's to me, that's craziness. Same thing with the value of, let's say, taking a pair of sunglasses. So I really want people to think analytically here that B and C felonies, we should include them and not exclude them for the reasons I stated. And I've said this before, I don't want to beat that horse anymore. You agree with that, Carrie Ann?
Well, we agree. I mean, so part of it, there was a bill that we did draft, and we believe that it moves towards the New Jersey model, which is just having it based upon the classification, Class C, Class B, Class A, without looking at the actual. We believe that the best standard is to go back to two things. Number one, is the person at risk of absconding, which is a higher standard than non-appearance in court. Someone may not show up for a court appearance because they're child sick, because they don't have transportation. Non-appearance is different from a willful intention to flee the jurisdiction. And the second part of the standard that is consistent with New Jersey is that if that person is at serious risk of harming of a specific individual, not just the general public. And if we move towards that standard and we eliminate cash bail, that would be consistent across the board, regardless of what code you're being charged with, which is the Class C or Class B. go back to that standard, you apply it across the board. And that wouldn't give anybody an opportunity to just be released. If there is a flight, again, the absconsion risk or the serious risk of harm to any other individual.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, we're gonna move on without, if I don't see any more hands at this particular point in time. Bob, you good?
I'm good, thanks, Mark.
You see very peacefully there with those in your room there. Thank you. Okay, let's move down. Thank you for Kat and Carrie Ann for your continuing monitoring of the legislative session and assisting the commission with what's going on. Max, you on? I know I saw your hand raised. Yeah. Hey, Max, as we begin to become more normalized as a state and in islands, and how are we doing in the system in terms of COVID? Are we getting back to normal?
Mark, you're skipping over the coordinator position.
Oh,
That's
I'm
number
sorry.
12.
Sorry, Max. Real quick, we have no update on the coordinator's position at this time to report.
Oh my God.
Okay, Max.
Okay, yeah, we were doing really well, for the past 3 weeks or so. Facilities were clear of all positive cases for inmates. Unfortunately, yesterday we detected a positive on intake at OCCC. So currently right now, throughout the state and Arizona, we have 1 active case that we're dealing with at OCCC for inmates. We have 2 active cases for staff. One is out of KCCC and one is out of Malala. We are very concerned because of the slow rise, or maybe not slow rise, but the rise in the community spread at this time on this new variant. So we're still doing what we need to do. Facilities are still, anybody in the facility, entering the facilities, are still required to mask up at this point based on CDC recommendations. As far as vaccinations go, this is as of April 11th. So total for our Hawaii facilities, we had a final dose of we administered the final dose to 3,570 inmates. We have boosted so far 1,231 inmates. In Arizona, you could add 886 inmates that received their final dose and 393 that received boosters. We paid out under the vaccine incentive program. We paid out over 165,000 for vaccines and paid out over 38,000 for the boosters so far. We've just begun the incentive for our second booster shot. So inmates that receive the second booster shot will also be receiving the $25 incentive at this time. That's all I have to report as far as the COVID situation. Do you have any questions?
When we talked about returning back to normalcy, and I heard you mention your screening processes are still in place in terms of temperature checks. How are we doing in terms of visits, family visits? Have that been back to normal and your programming?
Okay, that's going into number 4. So Tommy's going to take charge of number 4.
Okay.
For all programming.
I don't think we have commissioners. Do you have any more questions on the COVID situation? I think we're going to just continue on with item number 4 on the agenda, and it'll come up. Okay, thank you, Tommy.
Oh, okay, just go back to number 3 real quick, though. We just added to that, we sent out a memo yesterday along with updated flyers. We added the second COVID booster to the incentive program for $25 for the inmates to get as well. So they will get $50 for the initial vaccination, $25 for the first booster shot, and another $25 for the second booster shot as well. We will keep this going until the funding expires in December 2024. As far as visitation goes, all the facilities have restarted visits. The visit schedules are posted on our website for everybody to see. So are the instructions and numbers to call and how to set up the visits. That includes visits in Arizona as well. The GTL tablets are up and running for video visits as well in the facilities. And in example, in Arizona, we just got the tablets back up and running. They're averaging about 500 video visits per day, which is a lot, which is good. So as far as programming goes, all the programs at Saguaro are up and running. All the programs here in Hawaii are getting back up and running now. Substance abuse treatment is up and running. Sex offender treatment is up and running, and it was actually modified during the pandemic. We did a lot of distance learning, including on some of the substance abuse treatment modules. Volunteer services up and running again, but because COVID, we didn't have people in the facilities for almost 2 years. A lot of people, including the vendors, need to be retrained. We're in a process now of identifying who are the folks that need to be retrained and scheduling them for the volunteer training, the required training before they go back into the facilities again. Food service was affected slightly. We had to go to modified menus at times, but everyone is back to regular food menus. Educational services is up and running. We did a lot of distance learning during the pandemic. They're back to regular but spaced class sessions now. But we've also kept some of the distance learning, and we started, or actually entered into a new agreement in Arizona for distance learning college classes in Arizona for the inmates there. So, I mean, that's where we stand. We still have some modified access procedures in place in the facilities for safety and security of the staff and the inmates. And that may change based on this new variant if the hospitalizations continue to climb, and if we see that we have cases beginning to climb in the facilities, we will have to do modifications to the different schedules again, but hopefully we won't have to. But by and large, most of the programs are up and running. A lot of them kept going during the pandemic, but they were in modified versions. And I just want to give you guys an update, if I can, on where we stand with the ID card issue for sure and the pending legislation. Is that okay?
That'll be fine, Tommy.
On the pending legislation that one of the I think it was Carrie Ann, we don't issue ID cards. So what we're trying to do was do housekeeping to correct the statute to say we can assist the inmate in obtaining the ID card. The only agency that can actually issue the card is the county agencies through the Department of Transportation who are authorized to do so. So again, that was only housekeeping to clean up the language. It doesn't water down the bill at all, because all we're correcting is we're saying that we will assist them. We're not actually issuing the card, as Kat mentioned earlier. This is akin to the other legislation pending where Kat wanted to change the minimum from maximum to minimum term, right? There was an error in the statute and the language. That's all we're trying to do. With respect to the ID card machine, the ID card is at Halava. We finished all of the system checks and the wiring. Right now, we're now finishing up the procedures. We anticipate issuing the first ID card next month. We will do a press release once we do that. How that process works is the inmate fills out the application. We take the application and we take their fingerprints at the machine. We take their photo at the satellite module we have. The information is all electronically sent to the county ID card issuer. They have an MOA with the Department of Transportation, as do we, and we have an MOA with the County Agency of Community Services here. They will actually review all the documents and decide to approve the ID card. If they do approve the ID card, they will print the ID card. We will pick it up from them the inmate will sign for the card. And we will put it in as part of their property, and they will be issued the card once they get out. We're looking at expanding that now to Maui County and to Hawaii County. We've already made contact with the mayor's office there, and they have in turn referred us to the ID card issuing administrators in both of those counties, and we're waiting to set up meetings with them now. We also plan to put a machine at the Women's Community Correctional Facility because we are planning on consolidating all the female offenders from OCCC to the women's, and that way they'll have an ID card, a satellite machine there as well. So that's where we stand on the ID card machine. We do have one machine up now. We anticipate issuing the first ID card in May, and then we will expand to women's facility from there, and then we'll expand to neighborhood from there.
And Mark, just to be clear, these are real IDs that you can actually use to get on the plane. So it's similar to a driver's license right now.
It's an official state ID card.
I have two questions,
Sure.
if I can, and it's really for clarification on one of them. With the ID cards, are you folks planning on keeping track of how many requests you made, and if your requests are rejected, what kind of problems are you facing to ensure we can overcome those in the future?
Well, yes, Martha, we're working with, right now we're working with Honolulu County Department of Community Services. And the process we worked out is, even though we electronically send them the fingerprint, electronically send them the picture and the applications are actually the hard copy original application we hand carry to them in batches. They'll sign for it from us. If there's any issues, they'll let us know what the problem are. We'll fix it on this end and then resubmit. And everything, just like a pardon packet, everything is signed for back and forth. So that's how we're going to be able to track how many we sent, what the turnaround time is, when we get them back, how many are still pending. We intend to look at the TPD dates, the tentative parole dates, for offenders and the max out dates, and then back up 6 months from a year to that date and start the process to make sure the average length of time to get an ID card from the date the inmate completes the application and it's submitted to the date we actually get it in hand is about 30 to 45 days.
I appreciate that. And if if DOT rejects an application, are you going to keep track of what things were lacking for that inmate, so maybe we can overcome them in the future?
Yes, that's correct. We're going to fix it on this end, and we'll take a lessons learned kind of approach, so we make sure we don't make the same mistake twice. A lot of times we anticipate it's going to be missing or inaccurate information that's being provided.
But I hope you can report to us in the future if you do get rejections, this is why, and how you tried to resolve them. The second question, I'm going to ask if you can report next meeting on volunteer. Can you let us know what services are being offered by facility? And if you want, Tommy, I can send an email.
Yeah, that would be,
So to you, so everybody will see it. What services are offered by facility? How often? The number of volunteers involved by facility and by service, and also the number of inmates currently participating.
participating in the different educational services.
No, in volunteer services. So if you have a reading tutor, how many people are participating in reading?
I got it. Okay, thank you. Yeah, follow up with an email and we'll make sure we get it to you.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
That's it, Mark.
Any of the other commissioners have any questions for Tommy or Max? Okay, thank you, Tommy, Max, for that. That's very interesting reporting out, and I appreciate the time and effort that you took to put that report together. And I'm glad we're finally moving in the direction that we need to do with the IDs. It's going to be very crucial and important in our ability to transition successfully our offenders. Let me see. We want to move on to item number 6.
Mark,
Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
I saw something in the chat box from Carrie Ann. I wanted to hear too, at some point, what Faith Action Community Equity is doing about no cash bail. I see that we have both Ashley Loa, who's a recent Obama Foundation grantee, and we have Lee Curran here. And my understanding was, because I think Bob and I appeared on a some kind of Zoom or something, that there's a movement to try to do away with cash bail. Could I ask Ashley or Lee, what your group's doing? And congratulations, Miss Ashley.
We're on item number 5 right now, discussion of legislative concerns of Department of Public Safety, bail reform, criminal records as
Okay.
printed. So yes, Mike,
Well, it says bail reform. Maybe I misread it.
it's okay. I mean,
It's one of the items under 5.
yeah, you can, I'm saying, yes, you can. So whether Ashley or Carrie Ann wanted to.
Or Lee Curran.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lee Curran. I'm with Faith Action for Community Equity's Transformative Justice Task Force. And I do want to shout out to Ashley Lower, our Executive Director. It's huge that she is an Obama Foundation scholar. So yay for Ashley. About House Bill 1567, our task force has been working pretty tirelessly for the last several months around getting that bail bill passed. Unfortunately, the House draft really watered down the bill and took out the Class C felonies. I want to echo what Carrie Ann shared around it. Those Class C felonies are so impactful, especially to women. And women tend to be the custodial parent for children, so it's impactful for the entire family. Something else I just learned is that obstruction of justice is a Class C felony, and the Hawaii Community Bail Fund was established to bail out the kupuna arrested at Mauna Kea. So these Class C felonies, as in the Senate draft who restored them, they really need to be kept in the bill. It's just very imperative. Right now, we are just putting pressure on Senate President Kochi to appoint conferees to the conference committee for this House bill. The House has done so. We're just really waiting for the Senate to do so as well. And cross your fingers, once that happens, we're really going to reach out to all of the conferees and just really impress upon them that they need to pass this bill with the Class C felony inclusion. So thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Lee. Thank you, Lee. I appreciate that. Ms. Law, did you want to say something?
No, you did great. Thank you.
Okay, congratulations on that award. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. We've heard a lot from Carrie Ann, and we've heard a lot about from Kat. We really didn't have any discussions at length about this particular topic. However, excuse me. One of the things I wanted to just throw up there, because it's becoming a discussion right now on the amounts of money that some of these bills are asking to be appropriated. Now we're considering the legislature being very putting a lot of money because they have it. Yeah, and we get caught up because we get excited because we want to have these monies. You know, we look at a lot of the bills that the Women's Prison Project is pushing through for reform in transitional programs for the women. I wanted to bring up 2770, yeah, that talks about public safety and OHA working together to create Native Hawaiian cultural programming. Now, the amounts in these bills always end up being blank into some specific point in time. Yeah. And one of the things that I'm told, because I'm still with the Department of Human Service, OIS, is, you know, a lot of this may be a one-time drop. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so we consider a one-time drop, and understanding by the time money becomes available, the planning occurs, and then you go for procurement issues. We're almost back to July again. You know, so what is meaningful in the money that is being dropped in the year that it's supposed to be used? Yeah, and that most of it is the planning of that first year to try to put together the program and then looking for the programs. Yeah. So we always have to be careful. I'm not careful. I'm just, that's something to be in discussing right now. When we're looking at Hawaiian programs, we have to figure out what does that look like on a systemic level, so that wherever the offender or the Native Hawaiian wanted to participate is being housed, that it's being offered. Yeah, and
Yeah.
you want
Mark, I have one
to
question.
go ahead.
This is Martha. I have one question about the money, and things might have changed since I retired. But as you said, when money is appropriated by the legislature, it takes a while to get that RFP out, to develop the RFP, then the contract, and the services very often don't start until January the following year. But it used to be that if money was encumbered for fiscal year 2022, as long as we signed our contract by the end of 2022, we did have, the money was available for the next fiscal year. Is that not true anymore?
You know,
Does it have to be
specifically,
spent?
and that's the question I have thrown out to the legislature is this money going to be able to be encumbered?
Yeah, because I,
You know, for the following fiscal year.
let's ask if Lisa, are you aware of any changes in us being able to encumber money for at least a year after the money was designated for a particular year?
No, but I'll double check on that.
Yeah, because it used to be we could encumber it, you know, if we encumbered it with a contract in January, it meant that contract was good through December of the following year, even though the money was allocated for 2022, it could go into 2023.
Can I say something?
Go ahead,
This is
Kat.
Kat. Actually, I think a lot of the money is coming down from the federal government. So there are going to be some hard deadlines. So I don't know what they are, but I think that's when it comes from the federal government. We got to make sure what the deadline is. Also, I forgot to mention that we finally did pass a bill to correct the statute of the Oversight Commission.
Yes.
So now people can be released. That it's sitting on the governor's desk. We're on day 7. He has 10 days to sign. I've been sending up some prayers because along with the coordinator, we really want this bill signed also.
Okay, Mark, we got to send something up too.
To the governor's office.
Yeah. Kat, can you give us the bill number again?
Yes, SB
2305.
Woo, right on, Mark. And it
So
went
we should
through
try-
without a bump.
And
It's-
we should
it's-
try and get something up there to no later than tomorrow.
Yeah, we're running out of time. And the way it's kind of working this year is they're struggling with the budget. So it looks like the rumor is that the budget may be settled on Friday. So that means that we will have next week to have like a zillion conference committees. So what they're doing is they're actually looking at bills that are similar and trying to group them together. So on the 2309, there's the Senate put in $500,000 in the budget. But I also think that they're collapsing other bills into that. So I think that money is not going to be enough for diversion and reentry. So I'm kind of nervous that they're doing this behind closed doors and they're collapsing bills into the budget, and we have like no influence to say, hey, wait a minute, that might not be the best idea. So that's just my report. Thank you.
Mark,
Go ahead,
Mark,
Ted.
I just want to make a comment on this, the issue that Martha had been discussing about encumbrances. Well, you started.
Right.
I think the real problem for a lot of agencies is because if they get an appropriation this year, and if the legislature is able to do that because we're flush with federal money now, the real issue would become after year 1. Say the money is encumbered and you need the program to continue. Unless it's a one-time study that you can complete in year 1, you have to go back and look for more money after that. And the I think the problem may become next year, we might have a whole bunch of agencies looking for continuing funding because the money they have is only good for 1 year. Just a comment.
Yeah, and that was really the reason why I brought this up, Ted, is really understanding these are one-time drops, and then you have a bill, we're gonna appropriate some money, it's dropped, and after that, it may not be appropriated again. So it's really about not just the programming, but how do you sustain them?
That's right.
Yeah, that has to be an intricate part of the initial discussion on sustaining what we want to create. And Martha, Ted, you all know we've seen a lot of things start and a lot of things end. So, and that's one of the reasons I think oversight has a role in that at some point. Once the fiscal year starts and we see the appropriations and we see the bill, is really trying to track the process within public safety to assure that that money is depending on the manner of which it flows, and we need to get verification on the federal versus where else the money can come from and how it can be used, that we are sure that we monitor it so that it can be used to the best that it was designed for. That's basically why I brought that up. Yeah, because there are a lot of bills that are receiving appropriations for this one time. Was there anything else on item 5 that the commissioners might want to talk about in terms of the legislative bills? Like I said, we're in a standby mode right now as the House and the Senate go over the budget. Yeah.
Okay, Carrie just brought to our attention in the comments or the chat that HB 2171, which is the one that splits the department into 2 parts, into law enforcement and corrections. And in that is, it revised the provision about deaths in custody, and it doesn't require that they be reported, as if I understand that correctly, Carrie Ann.
Yes, so I'm sorry, I meant to actually go back into the bill and just maybe look at it again one more time before I reported to you, but this morning I couldn't get into the legislative website. I think it's the volume of people that are trying to get in. So maybe after this session, I'll go back and look at it and just follow up with the commission. But prior to the drafts that were coming out would change the standard, there was an opinion by Office of Information Practices stating quite clearly that under the current statute, that the Department of Public Safety is required to release the names and other identifying information relating to people who die in custody, not only those incarcerated, but if there happens to be an employee who dies while working within the facilities. And in light of that memo, then there was a change to the provision and then removing that, clearly stating that you would not be required to release the decedent's name, which from my understanding, listening to the commission here in other meetings, that would be contravene the position that it should be made public as it is done in other states.
Okay.
And my understanding that I could just add is that if you do not release the name of the individual, then that even leads in terms of media having access to speak in terms of autopsies and looking at records to see if there could be anything that could have occurred within, negligence, assaults, death, whatever the cause of death may be. But I understand if they do not have the name, then they cannot gather in further information.
And Mark, we can write to the conference committees. We can't testify at the conference committees, but we can write to them about bills we're concerned about and what our stands are. So we may want to consider that on this bill.
Mark, just, I don't know if this is housekeeping, but on the previous bills, we discussed the one about the IDs and the one about the minimum sentence. We had previously officially taken positions on those bills. We haven't taken a position on this particular bill that Carrie Ann just brought up. So we need to decide as a commission whether we want to get involved in this issue. So just pointing it out.
And the reason I did, because we didn't expect that the death part was gonna be
No,
part
no,
of.
we
the
didn't.
bill. Yeah,
No, we didn't. But you know, it is an agenda item and we are meeting, so it's a very simple thing that we should vote. Should we take a position on this or not?
And I recommend we do take a position on it and write a letter to the conference committee. So should I make a motion?
Go ahead.
Again, for House Bill 2305, that the commission writes to the conference committee indicating, I'm sorry, I'm not putting this in good words. I have to start over again. Mark, can you think of anything? I'm not thinking well on my seat. How this motion should read.
I'm reading right now.
That the reinstate the provision that the requirement of the department to report deaths in correctional facilities be reinstated into the bill or something to that effect.
Yeah. And since I don't have it in front of me, that's why I'm being really awkward about it, because I'm not quite sure what the right reading is in the bill and what was changed. But can we do a more general statement that we?
Yes, I think it's better.
I move that we submit comments to the conference committee for HB 2305 concerning reporting of deaths of inmates.
I'll second that.
Yes, and if I could, I'm sorry, if I could just add that, yeah, the bill is HB 2171.
Oh, I'm sorry,
It is-
2171.
yeah, sorry, there's so many bill numbers, but this one is HB 2171. And in some other conversations with some lawmakers, they have said that they are, of course, wanting to hear from the Oversight Commission. So I believe that it would be of value to hear from all of you. Thank
So
you.
I amend my motion to read HB 2171. Mark, it was moved and seconded.
Yeah, I'm trying to write it down because I ain't gonna remember it just by listening, Martha. And I probably got it wrong writing it down. So it's been moved and seconded, moved by Martha, seconded by Ted, that Hawaii Correctional Systems Oversight Commission submit comments to HB 2171 in conference
Mhm.
concerning the reporting of death by Department of Public Safety.
Fine with me.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say same. Motion passed. You know, when you submit, and I'm showing my ignorance here, is it just, I've seen the list of conference and they have chairs. Is that who we're writing to, the chairs?
The chairs, and you CC everybody in the conference committee.
Okay.
And so Mark, we can talk after this about that,
Yeah.
drafting that letter.
Okay, thank you for that, Carrie Ann, and
Welcome.
continually to bring that to our attention. We'll move on to item number 6 at this
Oh,
time. If
Mark.
no further question. Go ahead, Ted.
If we're still in legislation, I did have a question
Okay.
for Max. And this relates to the budget bill. As we had discussed earlier, the House removed the 10 million or $15 million for planning of the new OCCC, but the Senate put back $1.5 million. I just wanted to ask if the Senate version prevails and $1.5 million is appropriated for this project, how would you utilize that?
How do we utilize the 1.5?
Right, if that's what you get.
I guess we would have to even phase it out in a longer process. If money is appropriated, we would have to use it for what it's appropriated
I believe your original request was to develop the RFP and go through the RFP process, right? Correct?
Correct.
So would the $1.5 million enable you to do that?
I don't think so. So we would have to even phase that RFP process even longer, I think.
I see. Okay, just,
But the reality is our CIP budget has been, the Senate has appropriated only 10% of everything that we asked for in CIP at this point. So even things that we need for the ADA compliance is 10%. All of our projects that are shovel ready, it's 10%. So we're not certain as to why they did that, but it's across the board 10% at this time.
Wow.
okay. The budget chairs sometimes think a little differently and during this part of the legislative session.
Well, the House was pretty clear on their position. They funded certain projects in whole, but when it got to the Senate, it became very creative there.
So you're saying 10% CIP cut? I mean,
90% cut.
Oh, it's basically, so we have been getting a lump sum that was mentioned earlier, about $20 million, and these are to repair the facilities that we have now.
Right.
And that money is put to good use. But under the current Senate budget, it's $2 million. So again, the facilities will be in disrepair.
Yeah.
You know, without the additional funding that we need to maintain these whole facilities. So, you know, we're actually drafting, you know, a response to the budget committees now and trying to meet with them to see, you know, the rhyme and reason behind their decision.
Wow.
Well,
That's
interesting games going on up there.
Yeah. 2 million is not even enough for one facility,
Yeah,
let
especially,
alone the entire system.
yeah, especially a very old facility.
Yeah.
Yes.
If you aren't able to do your ADA compliance projects, what would be the consequence?
Lawsuit.
Yeah.
Okay, it's pretty evident.
Yeah.
It's federal law.
Yeah, so there's a lot of repercussions for us not maintaining certain things within the facilities, and the ADA one would be probably a very low hanging fruit for us, for them.
Thank you, Max. Thank you for that information.
Mark, I have one other comment to make. You know, Max, with the federal funds, I don't know, do you know if any of those are available for that type of CIP, or the federal funds really for other things? Because ADA sounds like a good one-time project, ADA compliance.
We looked into the infrastructure federal funding, but it doesn't match at this point. It's more of, you know, bridges and highways and other types of utilities. So yeah, we looked into all types of funding at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you guys for that discussion on item 5. Item 6, we most recently came out, there was a findings that came out on a particular case that a couple of the commissioners wanted to bring forward. So Ted, you want to start off that discussion?
I think Mike asked. Yeah.
Going to defer to Ted, but please, it's a public document. It's a court judgment. You can print it out, not confidential. I encourage everybody to read it carefully. I encourage you to read what Pablo Stewart had to say. And Mark and commissioners, I'd like to see Pablo Stewart's entire report. I don't know if it's in the record or it's under protective order, or just Judge Tanaki did a thorough job, but I didn't see all of Pablo Stewart's report. So I'd like to see in May, perhaps pleasure of the chair and the board, the commission, to get Pablo Stewart to attend, maybe Mike Livingston, certainly Mike O'Malley. If you haven't heard from Mike O'Malley, you need to. He's a very persuasive person here, and maybe Tommy Otaki. A lot more I could say. I think this case, maybe, who knows where it is in the legal thing. Maybe Bob could help us, but Ted, I'll yield to you. I've got more to say.
Well, I wanted just to recap. This case involved a suicide over at Halava, and the inmate's father, that's Michael O'Malley, sued the department over the suicide, and the department admitted that they didn't follow its own policies. And the only thing left for the court to decide was what number to write on the check. And the number, the court decided the number would be $1.3 million or something like that. But it was stated in the news reports that I read that the plaintiff's attorneys, and that's Mike Livingston and Tommy Otaki, stated that all of the policies were in place. The department simply wasn't following it, or at Halava wasn't following it. So I just wanted to ask Max at this point, what have you folks done to correct this situation, to make sure that all of the facilities understand the policies and carry out the policies as they should? Because the consequence is the worst possible consequence, somebody dying.
Okay, just to clarify, Ted, it wasn't the department that wasn't following the policy, it was specific staff, I think. You know, as you stated, the policies are pretty solid. I was here when you were here as director, and you know, a lot of the suicide policies were developed at that time. We had a briefing with the AGs to address some of the issues. If training was an issue, we currently have a whole bunch of people, healthcare people that are going through corrections. What is it called? C corrections, civilian
Familiarization training.
Yeah, familiarization training. So we have, I think, over close to 30 staff right now currently in training to get them geared up to understand the correction side. Most of them are healthcare workers. We enforce the policy, making sure that the wardens enforce the policy. But it appears that it was the training. The staff that testified at that hearing claimed she never got training. I can't say much about, you know, to counter that her statement, but you know, we are rectifying the issue by providing intensive training to our staff right now.
Yeah, as I recall from what I read in the news articles, there were more than simply a few staff who weren't aware of the policy or weren't properly trained. For example, the inmate clearly had suicidal tendencies. He had attempted suicide before. He had been in the Hawaii State Hospital, and he was placed in a cell where he was not placed in a suicide cell, although he had expressed suicidal indications. He was not monitored. As I recall, the policy requires a mental health check before anybody goes into segregation. I would want to know whether such a check did occur, and the mental health staff can override the placement of an inmate in segregation, for example. So there seemed to have been a number of things that went wrong. Simply, and it seems to be more than a few staff at one facility not understanding the policy.
Yes, and a lot of it laid on the mental health staff at that time.
Well, the policy, as I recall, also requires that daily checks be made by various people, including mental health staff and other staff, and that the warden review any inmate in segregation at least once a week. So
That is still being done.
that is being done.
Yeah, so the 24-hour checks, the 48-hour checks, visits by mental health, reviews, the 7-day reviews. Anybody in disciplinary segregation, that is being done. We're still getting reports from facilities on people that they detain. A lot of stuff that we set up back in 2014, 15, I believe. So that those checks are still being done.
Okay.
I would ask that if you could send me your questions, because I feel very uncomfortable talking about a lawsuit in open public right now.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I didn't want to get too much into the lawsuit. Everything I've said is available publicly. I read it's through the news stories that I read, and I'm more interested in what are you doing to make sure something like this doesn't happen again. So
It boils down to training and accountability, I think, at this point, because if you agree with us, we honestly believe the policies are pretty solid at this point, and it's just making sure that the policies.
yes. Okay, thank you.
Mark, maybe we could put the judgment online, which it is a public document. Put it in our chat box or something. I have it here. It's not hard to find, or it is a few pages.
Mark, your mic isn't on.
Anybody can put it in the chat box, Mike.
Okay, thank you.
Or we can have Lisa post it as a matter of reference or a link to it on our website.
Let's do that.
Okay, I'll put a copy of the findings on the commission's page.
Thank you.
Thank you for that discussion. No further questions. Move on to item number 7. I believe it's we posted our annual report for everyone to see on the website. I want to personally thank Martha for her hard work on this and helping us put together, all of you who added as well, commissioners, to the certain specific parts of it. Martha, you want to brief us on what's, any questions?
There's not much to brief. It's only 5 pages long, and then the rest is attachments. What makes it very difficult to do an annual report is we don't have written minutes, and I do not have the patience to listen to all the recordings of our meetings and take notes. So I do apologize for not a more in-depth report. And as we move forward, as we get staff, hopefully this will be resolved. And everybody contributed to it. It wasn't just me. I just pulled together the contributions from all of us.
Ron or Mike or Ted, you have any questions on the annual report?
Nope. We all, I know I contributed a little bit, but it's Martha's the real workhorse on this one. So thank you, Martha.
You're more than welcome, but it's only 5 pages.
I agree with Ted. Thank you, Martha, for putting, even though 5 pages is not quantity, it's quality.
Yeah. This is our second annual report. So it sounds
But
like
at least we're doing it. I
we're old
mean,
timers. But you
yeah.
know, our first one was very extensive. But our first year as a commission, that was the beginning of COVID. You know,
Yeah.
and we did a lot of work, and it showed in our annual report. We did a lot of work the second year as well. You know, but not most of our first annual report had to do with COVID.
And with the capacities, yeah, the COVID capacity.
Emergency
And that
capacity.
took up a big bulk of it, yeah. And so we worked hard on the capacities. And we met on that a couple of times, yeah.
So I think this is a good accounting of what we have done and what our concerns are at this time for the legislators to look at. It has been sent out. Same time we posted it online to the legislatures, to the governors, to the House Speaker, Senate President, Chief Judge, and the Office of Hawaiian Affairs. And the committee had, no, just those 5, yeah. So that's where we are with that. I'll move forward. No other questions on the annual report. And just ask the public who are here if you have any final comments before we end our meeting. I want to thank Bob. Were you just about to say something?
Oh, yes, if I may, I just hope that at the next meeting, the O'Malley case will be on the agenda, and that Pablo Stewart, Mike Livingston, Tommy Otaki, and Mike O'Malley can have some time to really explain what this all happened, what happened, and what they found, and what it meant. Particularly, I think there's a lot of details that we'd all be interested in. And I think it goes broader than just the Department of Public Safety to the question of whether Joey should have been in a correctional facility at all, given the extent of his illness, which I know something about because I've seen some of his records. And he just had an awful lot of problems, and probably that was not the correct placement for him. And finally, we've got other problems that we're working on. I'm trying to work with the department. We've been closed out of Leahi, at least for the time being. They've rejected an 87-year-old inmate who could not hurt anybody. And they've turned down other people that the department has tried to get in. And so it's a really big problem because we got some very sick people out there who need to be hospitalized, and not in an acute care hospital, but get hospital, a skilled nursing facility for long-term care, and they're not taking them. We're hoping that maybe Malohia will, but one of the people that I'm aware of hasn't even been convicted of a crime. He's in OCCC and he's in really bad shape. And it's just, I hope we get our staff soon for the Oversight Commission so we can start going into some of these issues in depth, because they are really systemic problems. And I know the department's working with them, and I'm trying to do my best to weigh in whenever I can. So, appreciate all the work you folks are doing. It's a good meeting. Thank you.
Bob, I have one question. Is the reason they're being rejected is because of the crimes they committed?
We don't know exactly, but I just know that I think every single one that we have recommended, that the department has recommended, or I've recommended, have just been turned down. And there's we used to put people there, but staff has changed, and I'm hoping that it's just a conservative person, and we need to educate them a little bit, and hopefully they'll change their position. I don't think it's set in stone. I just think it's the reaction of the particular person who's making the admission decisions.
Is Leahi a state run or private?
It's a state facility, and it's really good facility, and it really has a beautiful long tradition of taking people who are as Mike Town said, the least, the last, the lost and the lonely, and they take good care of people. So I hope we can get that changed.
And that's Department of Health.
No, it's run by Hawaii.
Health Systems Corporation.
Health Systems Corporation. And they also run Malahia, and that's where we're trying to go over there now. But it's a state facility.
So there really are two different issues, Bob. One is the Leahi end of intensive medical care. The O'Malley case really had to do with the whether he should have been in the state hospital or some other setting rather than in prison.
Absolutely. They're different issues, but one's mental health and the others are physical health. But and it also, ties in with the ADA because, even if it's an ADA compliance place, people who have disabilities who are, all the people we're talking about are parole ready. They've been paroled and the judges have determined that they shouldn't be in prison longer than the paroling authority decides. And yet we have all these people who are literally incarcerated, simply because we haven't addressed the placement issue. And they, it's just a problem we really have to fix. Families can't take these people. They need to be in a long care skilled nursing facility, and I can tell you 100%, none of the private facilities will accept the people, and it's not worth our time to try and convince them to do it. They just won't take people who have a criminal record, particularly the people we're talking about, because they've been in a long time, and they're in a long time because they've committed serious crimes. And the public, the private facility, private nursing homes just will not even consider them.
Something we need to follow up on. Bob. Thank you so much for comments at this time. Is there anyone else?
Yes, Chair Patterson, if I could just highlight in one of the chat questions, I think it came from Lee Curran from the Faith Action Community, whether or not the commission will be sending a letter to the conferees relating to HB 1567, the bail, the differences between the House and Senate, the Senate being that it would include Class C nonviolent felonies. Is the commission inclined to write a letter to conferees expressing support for the Senate draft?
That's a bill that we've already constantly been supporting.
Yeah.
We don't need any action, but we can
we can just restate our position. Yeah.
We state our position. Give me that House bill again. Is that?
It's HB 1567.
Okay. Thank you, Carrie Ann. We'll do that.
Ron may be able to help with that letter because he's been doing our testimony on that.
And I'll just add that even the HB 2169, which is the civil IDs, one of the persons on the conferees on the House side did mention that they were interested in hearing directly from the commission on that, on the two drafts.
On which one?
For the civil IDs.
Okay.
HB 2619. Sorry, numbers right now are like floating in my brain here, but it was
HB 2169.
Yes. HB, thank you, Kat. Representative Kobayashi did mention that he was interested in hearing from the Oversight Commission. Thank you.
Okay. As we close, Lisa, are you still here?
Yep.
I want to show everybody. One of the results of COVID is, we got it as soon as the commission started its work, we went into COVID and we started Zooming. And for those of us that have forgotten, that's what a public room looks like. And I want to thank Lisa for being the only one there. Me and Martha was thinking of going there, but I'm hosting the Zoom, so I need to be in my office.
And I want to urge that we start meeting in person as soon as everybody, I'm willing to start meeting in person.
Yeah.
But I think there's a lot to be said for us to be in the same room with the participants who have been on the Zoom meetings And it also allows us, after a meeting, individuals can approach us and we get a lot more conversation going. And that's what I miss.
So
Yeah.
Lisa, if that room is something that we can use on a monthly basis, the question would be, how do we can talk about how to figure out how I can host from there.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I was able to get the AGIT guys to set this up so that we have connections and interactivity here with me and you. So, I mean, you could be here.
Okay,
I think the experience, I don't know how, we'd have to talk about how to set it up so that the commission members could see people online and that, but that's a logistical problem, not a.
Yeah, like Lisa, I would bring my own computer. So I'd be able to see them on my own computer.
No, but if you wanted, if the commission's gonna meet here in person, you would want to have people online being able to see everybody and interact with the commission just as if they were here too.
Yeah.
So,
I would like that, but in case that's a problem, I can bring my own computer and see
Yeah.
people
well,
that way.
we'll make an attempt to see how close to that we can get in 1 month.
Chair, this is Kat. Carolyn Eaton has a question.
Oh, I'm sorry, you guys. I just saw the hands. Go ahead, Carolyn.
I heard Max speak about how they're hoping that all the facilities perhaps will get their own ID machine. And I wonder, does one machine cost $17,000? And whether that's practical, and it sounds like it's important. It's about the future, though.
My understanding is that those are all in the planning, in the works, as they open the Max, you want to take that?
Yeah.
Yeah, the machines cost 17. 15. Yeah, about $15,000 a piece. You're looking at possible funding through the legislature that appropriates money to us for reentry purposes. And if we get that one-shot deal, that could be used for the purpose of purchasing these machines. And it is, yes, Carolyn, it is an investment for the future. And I think, it would help the inmates, to get a good start when you get released.
Yes, I am just worried about the 1 month from now till when the first card comes out. Are people being released?
Yeah, we're still working with them, trying to get, as much documents as they can so they can get, everything in place so that they can actually apply for an ID when they get out. But that's all we can do at this point.
Yep, we'll have to hold off celebrating.
Yeah. We'll celebrate if we get one in.
I think one concern could be, Max, that people, that the parole board, let's hope they're not holding anybody back because they haven't received their ID yet.
No, they're not doing that.
Okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
Parole board has been more than generous in granting people at this time.
Thank you, Max. Thank you, Carolyn, for that question.
Thank you.
May 19th, 9:00 a.m. will be our next meeting.
Mark, are we gonna consider meeting in a public room like we had discussed earlier?
Yeah, that's what we're talking with Lisa.
Okay,
The big issue for me is that we're able to run the Zoom from the office. Yeah.
On the
Or
meeting-
there needs-
On the meeting room.
Yeah, someone needs to have, because I'm doing it from my office.
Yeah,
I didn't know how I could do it in public. Yeah.
well, you're a Zoom expert, Mark. by
No, I'm
now.
not.
And
I'm a
Lisa,
wannabe expert.
Lisa informed us, I think that she's reserved the room for the next 6
Yeah.
months.
Yeah.
This is the first of the 6 months.
And
I-
where is this room, Lisa?
It's the same place, DLIR, room 313. We've been here before. The first meeting we ever had.
First
was-
meeting
Oh, okay,
when we
yeah.
were sworn in. Yeah.
Oh, in the federal building.
Okay.
No, No, it's in the state. It's in the state,
Across from the federal building.
right behind the AGs,
Yeah.
with
Yes.
Labor and Industrial Relations, that building.
Yeah, I'm sorry, this is Karen. I just want to chime in because that was my old workplace for Hawaii Civil Rights Commission. I recall one of the reasons that you decided to then change was the parking, just to let you know that there is limited parking in that area, just to be mindful. There's that one parking lot right across on Halekuwila Punch Bowl. And so sometimes it is difficult to get parking, especially when court is in session. So just to share that with all of you.
I think unfortunately downtown, every place is difficult to get parking. Because our second meeting was also downtown. It was in the AG, the old territorial building.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Anything else, Lisa?
Just to make it clear though, if we are planning to meet in person next month, Ron, is that okay? Judge, I'll make arrangements for Judge.
Well, let me ask the question first. In regards to sunshine law. If we say we're gonna come, we all have to be there?
No, you don't have to. It's a logistics issue.
Okay,
And if we can set it up so everybody can participate in person and online. People can choose to stay where they are and participate online.
I just want to make sure that the commissioners understand their safety and is our concern as well. And if they choose to be at home, they can.
Mark,
Not out to the public at this time.
I like the hybrid approach.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay,
And
Yeah,
so,
right.
Ron, if you
Lisa-
want to come in, you just let Lisa know.
Okay, I may be in Arizona participating by. But
Okay.
yeah, I'll let you know, Lisa.
Okay, don't forget the time zone difference though.
Yeah, okay.
All right, everyone. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your comments and your thoughts, and we look forward. Let's go back out there. Hopefully, I'll be brave enough to hang out at the Capitol like Kat and the rest of you. But if not, I'll be on those Zooms. We'll get those letters out, and we'll see you in a month's time. Thank you so
And
much.
Mark, you can call me for input on the letter if you want.
Okay, we'll do, Ron. Thank you so much. Aloha,
Thank you,
everyone.
Mark.
Aloha,
you.
have a great day.
Aloha.
Bye.